Welcome back to Citizen Extra. We're well into the second hour. We switch gears and talk matters education, and my guests in studio are already going at each other, of course not agreeing on an issue here or there. I'll be introducing them to you shortly and trying to figure out what the truth is in regards to a lot that's happening in the education sector. Of course, it's dominating the headlines. We'll be talking about that shortly. My name is Wahiga Mora, and before we get into a discussion here, let's take a look at a story yesterday that raised or showed a rather worrying situation. We're talking about a Moto Primary School. Parents in that school in Molo Sub-County are yet to enjoy the taste of free primary education. The parents have been forced to buy desks for their children who are joining Class 1. They now want the area Member of Parliament Moses Cheboy to intervene. Our reporter Dennis Otieno brings us that story.
Moto Primary School in Molo Sub-County. This is not your ordinary elementary school. Want your child to get an admission here? Simple, just buy a desk.
Nimekuja kuulizia watoto shule wajukuu. Na hiyo wajukuu wako na masida sasa, na walete hapa na ulizo wa deski ninunue 1200 na pesa tuna.
Hizi ni madawati ambazo wazazi tunanunua. Na isitoshe, hii shule tuko na area hii, tuko na mbunge ambaye anaweza saidia hii shule kabisa.
This is the headache facing parents in this school, many of whom have been forced to go an extra mile to secure Class 1 places.
Hiyo desk nilinunua 1200 na nilichukua pesa za fertilizer. Sasa sina uwezo ingine.
And it is not just any desk.
Tunakuja unaleta, unaambiwa hii dawati si mzuri, uende ikuje kama imetengenezwa namna hii ama vizuri.
Parents are also worried about the sorry state of the school's infrastructure. According to the school's administration, the challenge has been caused by lack of funding from the constituency level.
We are located at the boundary, where for teachers-wise we are in Kusoi North, education-wise we are in Moro Sub-County.
The existing desks have been written off, and the school now wants area leadership to act. A tough lesson for these pupils who are dying to get an education to change their lives.
Well, very worrying story there, and that then opens up the discussion that we're having in studio. We're talking about matters education. Let me introduce my guest in studio, joining us today from the far right there, Amos Kaburu with Twaweza East Africa. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Wahiga.
And right next to him, Janet Mdhoni Ouko, CEC Education, Nairobi County. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you, Wahiga.
I can give you both a chance just to get your... Does any of you want to comment about the story that we've watched? No desk, no admission. Worrying that even as we look at free secondary education in some parts of the country, free primary education has still not been fully achieved. Janet, let me start with you.
You are right. I think this is an unfortunate bit that we have experienced in this country, and I would want to say that by and large it goes towards a lot of accountability issues, especially at institutional level. And of course, the lack of coordination, good coordination between what CDF can do, where CDF is reaching at, what support comes from the county government, and what support comes from the national government. But I would say that as Ministry of Education, I am aware moving forward guarantee Kenyans that the resources that the ministry has put in place are being spent in the right way, and the audit can now be able to make an assessment as to whether what they give to schools is sufficient or not sufficient, because there is a robust audit system that is now being rolled out.
After you watch a story like that, yeah, what do you feel needs for someone who is now in a position of authority, especially in Nairobi County, but of course this is outside your jurisdiction? What do you hope should be done for schools like that and others that are in the same situation?
My hope is
as soon as possible.
Yeah, my hope is that the funds for Ministry of Education that goes towards infrastructure have reached the school. And two, my hope is that the school management committee and the parents are able to sit down together and come up with realistic cost issues. It is not really bad to ask parents to probably chip in for what is not there. But one of the other small questions that comes to mind is, for example, one child bringing in a desk. Would they sit on the entire desk, or probably 3 of them would share a desk? Probably. so that if a desk is about 1,200, then 3 parents are, you know, those are some of the issues that are actually must be discussed, because the other time we were complaining about something like hockey sticks. And anyway, probably that school, there is need. I have not visited the school, so I may not be able to know. But we have a tradition where everyone coming into the school brings a desk, but they do not exit with a desk. You know, so you wonder. There is also the story you hear about hockey sticks. That every, for example, if a school is admitting 200, you know, learners, the 200 of them are supposed to carry a hockey stick each. What about 4,500? So you wonder, even if everyone was to bring, where would you take those kinds of you know, hockey sticks? You know, all of them. So there are several other issues when I look at that case that really you know, linger in my mind, especially if the catchment is really that poor. Does every parent have to foot the entire cost of a desk? Probably 3 parents can share the cost of a desk, so that we also, as institutions, you know, take into consideration the plea and the plight of parents.
Fair enough. Amos, come in.
Thank you, Wahiga. That is what I last time called violation of human rights.
Violation of human rights.
Because the Constitution is very clear. The right to education. Education for all defines what are the elements of quality education to provide. And what we are seeing in Moto Primary is a characteristic of what is happening in the over 20,000 primary schools. Actually, to judge
you have done a survey.
We've worked in many schools where every year
I
visit not less than 200 schools every year. And this is what we can conclude. And these are even statistics available in the Ministry of Education. Government has only contributed to us infrastructure in our schools by 6%. The rest of this, and this is through the initiatives such as CDF. Otherwise, the rest of this infrastructure is what the local communities and the schools have had to put in place. So I think it's rather unfortunate. Government must be a little bit bold in terms of how it looks at the issue of infrastructure in schools. And it's too unfortunate that even in the new guidelines provided for the implementation of free secondary education, government has still left the responsibility of infrastructure to parents. That is extremely worrying. Because the only cure towards addressing these issues is to standardize what you call infrastructure in our schools, so that you have what you call definition of bare minimums. What is a school? And it should be defined as a school when it has the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things.
So is it possible to say that you've achieved free primary education or free secondary education without standardizing the infrastructure across the country?
We've not achieved free primary education or even free secondary education, because what is free? What is free? Number 2, can you cost the cost of education? The fact of the matter is that you can never cost the cost of education. You can afford to cost the cost of schooling to a certain extent. These are the cost inputs that go into schooling. Issues such as salaries, issues such as infrastructure, issues such as the teaching and learning materials. But there are so many other things. There is the opportunity cost. What will happen if people are not taking their children to school? Number 2, what are parents shouldering? And if you look at the guidelines from the Ministry of Education, even for free secondary education, government has left the responsibility of uniform, which is quite expensive. Sometimes you could spend up to 10,000 on uniforms alone. Government has left the responsibility of lunch. Now let's do a simple computation of how many weeks do we have in a year. We have 39 weeks. Multiply by 5. That gives you 195 days. If you are to give children just a meal that is costing 70 shillings in a day, it's already going to cost you 16,000. So already meals are already consuming 16,000. Government is giving you 22,000. You are supposed to buy uniform. Government tells you that, put up infrastructure. And some schools even, Janet sat in the task force for harmonizing the issue of school fees. So you're going to see that even in a day school, parents are going to spend not a minimum of 25,000 to keep the children in the school. So what is
I think, you know, when we are discussing education matters, I think sometimes it's good for us also to place ourselves within the realistic, you know, environment that we operate under, and especially because he mentioned the question of lunch. I have always wondered, at primary school level, and especially even as when you are going to school, many parents would prepare lunch for their children. You'd pack your food, and that is what happens in most of the primary schools. But now, this secondary school is sharing a fence with the primary school. This child was for the entire 8 years carrying their good meal, githeri, prepared at home in a box. But when they cross over the fence and they become secondary school children, they can no longer carry packed food, they can no longer run home for lunch, and now the school wants the parents to pay 5,000, 8,000 maybe at some point to prepare for that child, you know, for lunch. You know, some of the responsibility, especially with government, is ensuring that education is made available to all. And what does government do? Government presents a situation where we have catered for everything that you need. But let's keep it real, and let's keep it to everything that we need. For example, I would tell you,
The worry...
if the child was running for lunch at home for the 8 years, there is no reason absolutely that when now they're even grown up, they're even older, they cannot be able to do that, because it depends from household to household. Sometimes we sit somewhere as a board, we make decisions, but those decisions affect a particular family. When you're sitting there and thinking that 5,000 is not an issue to you, remember that we are talking about the majority. And I can tell you, the majority of children in this country, the statistics are there, 63% of children are now doing what we are calling our county schools. So when we over-concentrate our attention so much on the minority, and now we want to look at what is happening in Alliance, we lose the big picture. I think government is about the majority. And the majority, the truth is, in our country, are the Kenyan poor. Let me come to the issue he raised about what government can do in terms of infrastructure and everything else. And he can bear me witness, because I know Kaburi is a respected professional in the field. He is yet to show me now a government in Africa that is spending the amount of money that Kenya government is spending within the education. That is one. So at least there is this commitment to spend a lot of money in education. Number two, we are not saying that the money has been used in the right way. You have seen the current, the CS, Matiang'i is now acting CS for education, has taken measures to want to redeem the sector. And in terms of, like, look at the book policy, for example. The revision of the book policy saved for the Kenya government billions and billions of money. So we are saying the education sector is on a reform path. So probably, if we're even looking at the allocations of infrastructure, and you're going to see more and more changes aimed at doing things in the right way and doing things doing only what makes sense.
And I think one of the challenges has been that on the campaign trail, the government promised free secondary education.
That did not pay anything.
And the feeling then was that your cost would be basically nothing.
Yes,
but the reality in January seems different.
That you have donated, and that's basically what you're putting across, Janet. I think this is not the question of admitting that government has not done something. Government has done a lot, and actually, for a fact, as Janet is putting it, the Kenyan government is one of the highest spenders.
When you look at the African continent.
Yes, because actually 5 years ago, if we give people statistics, the government of Kenya was spending 159 billion on education. As we speak now, government spending on education is close to 370 billion in terms of education. That's a huge allocation. However, the devil also lies in the details. For your information, Janet, government spending on education as a ratio of the GDP has actually been declining in the last 5 years. From 5.4%, now we are talking about 5.1%. However, you also need to understand this in what context, because government budget has also been going up. So if you look at the ratio of what government was spending 5 years ago, it was a budget of around 1.2 trillion. Now you're talking about a budget of around 2.3 trillion. So you do not expect that equally the budget and the allocations for education will also be growing exponentially. But however, the major challenge, and Janet mentioned it, and it's important that we highlight it more, is the issue around sector coordination. And the issue around how do we optimize the resources that we have. And that's why the effort that the ministry is putting in place are quite laudable. We have to agree that there are problems within the sector. Number one, the issues around textbooks. Can we standardize what is happening in our schools so that the resources that we have are able to be optimized well? However, we are not going to achieve this if there isn't much of looking at the structural approach through which we are using. And it's not just enough for us to say that government has done this, therefore we should keep quiet to it. Because as we're putting it, it's very, very wrong to tell a citizenry that when your children go to school, you will not pay anything. But now come when now the tire has to meet the road, parents are going to show an additional cost of 25,000.
How are you arriving at the 25,000?
I have given you the breakdown, Janet, here. We are talking about if you are to give the basic of the basic meals to children, on a daily basis, a mixture of maize and beans, how much will it cost you?
I have asked him what happened to when, because we are talking about day schooling in this context.
But you see,
we are asking, if you were
Janet, you're not going to tell children that you have to come to school and you are not going to eat. You are not going to tell, you sat in the task force and you agree that we have not reached a level where we can eliminate uniform. And it's for a fact, Janet, uniform is a significant cost.
Amos, I want you to finish breaking down how you came to the 25,000 so that you can respond briefly.
I have given you an example. If you are just to give a very, very of the basic meal, costing 70 shillings, and a whole year has 39 weeks, made of 5 days each, those are 195 days. Multiply by 70, it's already going to give you close to 16,000. Then you have now to add the cost of uniform. And uniform sometimes will even go up to 10,000. You are talking about these additional things such as, such as the desks and other requirements that children are supposed to have. Government is giving the 6 textbooks. Government is not going to give the geometrical set. Government is not going to cover for your transport.
Okay, now you can.
That is important that we look at. We need to itemize all the costs in education so that we can do what the government has done to say that these are the costs that we are going to cover and these are the costs that we are going to leave out. And at the point when people are preparing, that's what government should have done so that parents will have stayed when they are preparing themselves rather than going to bash with them all this information load towards the end when they are not prepared.
No, I think the responsibility of parents is central in this matter. And what Amos is trying to propagate is something that does not happen anywhere in the world, where the parent has absolutely no responsibility apart from probably, giving birth to the children. That does not happen anywhere.
What
the government is saying is there is free day secondary school anywhere in the country today, and that I can confirm. You just need to show up at the school. The tuition fee is totally paid for. This is what I'm saying. It's a broader discussion that we need to have.
Exactly.
Because we are not yet, and we have not gotten to the point where we can say that there are no uniforms. Although there are some institutions where, like the non-formal schools, the upgrade schools, you don't need the uniform, for you to be there. But I think those are discussions that really, we can have at some other point. But the point of having people trying to really pour water on what is happening, to say that there was a lie told that there is not going to be free secondary schooling. What we are saying is there is also the central role of parents to go to the institution and also ask, what is this that government has provided to us? This is the policy of government and this is what government has given. So that before anybody is telling you, bring money for, because lunch is a contribution that parents can make. I have just given you an example, that when you were schooling for the 8 years at primary school, you did not have a cost for lunch, you would carry your packed lunch, is it? What difference does it make when you now join the neighboring day secondary school that you can no longer carry food, that you now want government to adopt a cost of 8,000 shillings towards feeding you? That can happen in the long run. But we are saying there are priorities, happening.
Okay.
We are already impressed at the amount of money that government is spending already.
Fair enough. I will have to interrupt both of you there because I need to catch a live event that's happening now. The Leader of Minority, Honorable John Mbadi, was or has had a meeting with U.S. Ambassador Bob Godek. I think they're addressing members of the press now. Let's listen into that.
Put us to question and answer session.
Okay.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you very much to you, Mheshimiwa, for greeting me, welcoming me here today as the minority leader here in the National Assembly. My visit today here with you, and I am meeting with other members of the National Assembly, other leaders in the National Assembly and the Senate, is really about building the bridge between the United States and Kenya. It is an opportunity for me to hear directly from the leaders in the National Assembly and the Senate about what the priorities are for the new year, for the new sessions which are coming up, and really to explore ways that the United States can support them and support Kenya. We have a partnership that's now over 50 years long, and I think that we've worked very well together in so many different sectors and areas, and I just want to ensure that I've heard directly from the leaders of this very important branch of government, the legislative, the National Assembly and the Senate, about what it is that they want to accomplish and what they're thinking about at this particular time. So that is why I'm here. We did have a good discussion about the role of the National Assembly and the Senate in Kenya today, about the importance of independence and ways, again, that the United States can contribute to that. Certainly the United States has a long history, the Congress of Independence, with a lot of experience, and we're quite happy to share our experiences and the things that we've learned over the many years of our democratic government. We also had a conversation about the need for some further discussion around critical issues here in Kenya. And as you indicated, certainly the United States is very much of the view that there needs to be a national conversation here, that it needs to include a number of different issues. It does need to include questions such as independence of institutions, how to strengthen institutions. It needs to include questions such as how to ensure that the entire country feels like one country, that there is inclusivity, questions of governance. And we did also, of course, have a good discussion about how to combat corruption and how to deal with that particular problem, which continues, of course, to undermine the future of Kenya. So I think it was an excellent discussion. The United States does remain committed, strongly committed to a national conversation here in Kenya, and we're going to continue to look for ways to support the religious leaders, business leaders, everyone who is working in that direction. It's an important part of ensuring that Kenya has a strong future and that the country and the citizens can accomplish their goals. So thank you very much for the meeting today, and I look forward to working very closely with you in the months ahead as we try to move both the U.S.-Kenya relationship forward and move Kenya forward. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, too. I think that's it.
All right, the conclusion of that short press briefing coming after a meeting between Honorable John Mbadi, leader of the minority, and he was, having that meeting with the U.S. Ambassador Bob Godek, discussing various issues. Of course, we haven't quite gotten a lot of the details of what they actually discussed in there. What the ambassador has given us is a summary of why they met, but you can expect more details regarding that in our subsequent bulletins. We now carry on with our discussion here in studio. Janet Modoni continues with us, as well as Amos Kaburu. Let's look at tomorrow. Over 1 million Form 1s expected to go to various schools. Let's take a look at some of the changes that they expect to meet, but also the challenges that still abound as well. And I'll start with you, Janet.
Yeah, I begin by saying that Enamos will agree with me that we've really worked so hard, especially when we were the civil society, to tell government that surely the responsibility of schooling, including secondary school, is your responsibility. We did a lot of work. We spent a lot of years, doing that kind of advocacy, and here we are. We have a government that has admitted, yes, bring all those children to us. It is our responsibility. So I think for me it's a very big achievement. It's a very big step. Although I know it is not going to be without challenges.
What do you see as some of the key challenges from tomorrow?
The key challenges are, of course, this is a political will to do good. But I know it is probably not matched as it is now to the level of maybe infrastructural development. We shall get there, but let's admit that steps have been taken. There's a clear plan as to how we get there. So by and by, we can support each other, we can make this better. But I think the bottom line is, and that is why I get sometimes very worried when I hear that there are some schools who are raising reservations about opening, day wings in their schools.
Yeah.
Because what are we saying? What are we saying? We are saying, and this is what the government is saying, that education is a public good, that it is a responsibility of government to ensure that anybody under the age of 18 is put in a basic education, framework. So it is, and this is what really I would want everyone to understand, including parents, that all of us as a country, we have agreed that this is how we are moving.
So you feel that it is unacceptable for any of the 19 national schools to say that they will not accept day scholars under the new day wing system tomorrow? You feel that
it is because as far as I'm concerned, I would think that because schools belong to government, and government has guided you. They have told you that this is what we want to do with our schools.
Yes.
This is the policy that we are adopting moving forward. And you, as an employee of government, you are an implementer of government policy in that school. So you are expected to actually lead technically in supporting government to actualize that vision.
Fair enough, Amos.
I will start by saying, if I had a will, this is one. If I had a way, this is one appeal I would have made to the president, retain Matiang'i, the Minister of Education. And I will say that for the first time, I could see someone who is very radical in terms of the philosophical views of how you need to manage education. And one of the things that we need to address in as far as looking at education is concerned is to ask ourselves, for who does the education work for? If you look at the history of secondary schools in this country, you'll be shocked. As I've said, infrastructure, government has only contributed towards 6% of infrastructure in this country. The rest has been by local communities and by the parents by and large. And so you have a situation whereby parents come together and say, we think that we need a school. Let's donate some land. Parents donate some land. Let's put up some infrastructure. They put up infrastructure. So that this school is supposed to serve the children in the local community. And the school grows and grows and grows and grows. So at a certain point, there is a whole board that comes and it draws membership from all over. And therefore this board decides that we now think that this school has grown, therefore it should no longer be a day school. It should now be converted into a boarding school. When the school becomes a boarding school, it locks out children from the local community. And so you realize that this school that is situated in a particular context, the local community loses out on it. So I'll give an example. If this is Lenana High School, how much has the Dagoretti community benefited from Lenana? Whereas these are resources that belong to the local community. And so ideally, we should be advocating for more day schools. But this is what the responsibility of government is, to ensure that day schools are attractive enough. And that's why we've got some very, very attractive day schools. If you look at a school like Strathmore, Strathmore is a day school. Kianda, it's a day school. St. Mary's is a day school. You look at Kericho Day, these are day schools which are very, very effective. Like if you actually go to Mombasa, most of the schools are day schools. So I think we need to reach a level whereby we can support these day schools to be attractive enough. So that we do not feel that quality education is in boarding schools. But you can get boarding school, you can get quality education whether it's in a day school or whether it is in a boarding school.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sorry, we'll have to keep interrupting this discussion. Being the first Monday of the new year, there's a lot happening out there. We want to take you back now to that meeting between John Mbadi and Bob Godek, or Robert Godek, the U.S. ambassador. We are told that John Mbadi is addressing members of the press now regarding the cabinet appointments. If we have that link now, we can listen in.
Are doing, or Jubilee in its entirety is doing. Why would we be concerned about what 30% of Kenyans or 40% at most of Kenyans are doing when 60 to 70% of Kenyans are thinking and acting differently and programming ourselves and waiting for 30th of January. But whatever they're doing, I think even them, they have come to realized, Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto have come to realize that the presidency that they are claiming to occupy is legitimate. It lacks what I would call the mandate of the majority of people of Kenya, such that they are showing clear signs of lack of confidence in whatever they do. Because I think probably Kenya would have scored a first one, rather a record for being probably the only country in the world where after election someone who purports to have been elected and sworn in as president announces only 9 members of a cabinet of 22, which is actually about just 30% or so of the cabinet. So to me it is a clear example of lack of confidence, and this is stemming from the fact that even Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto know that they don't have the mandate to rule as president and deputy president. Obviously, as I mentioned, I was very candid. We were very candid with each other, with the ambassador. I told him that the issue of executive needs to be addressed, that Kenya has not moved on. Some people want to make the international community believe. But you know, the ambassador is not foreign, is not new to this country. He has been in this country for about over 5 years, I think. I think he's the longest serving ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. I don't think there's anyone who has ever served longer than him. So he is very much aware of what is happening in this country, and he appreciates what is happening in the country. I have told him very clearly that the issue of executive will definitely affect what is the functioning of parliament, because over 90% of things that are discussed in Parliament, bills, motions, or sessional papers, they are all generated from the executive. So unless you sort out the messes at the executive, you cannot pretend that Parliament would function normally and smoothly. So it is something that, yes, we discuss, but that is not the only thing we discuss. As we have mentioned, we have discussed a number of issues. We started by talking about Parliament, how Parliament can maintain its independence. We have talked about how Parliament can fight corruption. We have also talked about how the minority and the majority can work so that the country gets value for having the institution of Parliament. We have also talked about the corruption even within Parliament, because you cannot fight corruption if there is issues and concerns and rumors about corruption within Parliament. The rent seeking, we've talked about Parliamentary Service Commission, whether it has worked overboard or there is corruption associated with it. But we have also talked about largely how all of us need to work as leadership to promote the ethics of integrity, which I think this country really lacks in terms of leadership. But as I was saying, that you cannot expect me as leader of minority to pretend and tell you that this country is going to move on when I know we are stuck. In fact, I was almost giving the example of which the ambassador was quoted as having used, but he stopped me because he said that were not the words he used about the ship has sailed. That I wanted to remind the ambassador that probably the ship has sailed, but with nobody, or with just the captain and a few other people. A lot of people are still waiting for the right ship to take them to the other side, and in this case Canaan. But I'm happy that he stopped me and told me that the words that were used were not his words. Of course, the ambassador was very clear also and forthright with me that as far as is concerned, that he feels that we cannot hold another election in 90 days. So his thinking is that we can discuss, yes, how Kenya needs to move on. We can discuss all these issues that NASA is putting forward about the electoral justice. We can talk about the judiciary and protection of the judiciary, which he also feels that the judiciary must have independence. He even quoted the issue of 25th when judiciary could not raise a quorum. And went ahead, we talked about the reforms that are needed in the security sector. On the issue of devolution, I've also mentioned to him, and I told him about our governance system of government, which many of us feel needs to be changed. So he's saying that the problem that he has is with the understanding of the dialogue. Jubilee has its own way of understanding, NASA has its own way of understanding. And to me, I was very clear and candid and asked him that if I know he is uncomfortable, I know many people are uncomfortable with our swearing in on 30th of January. Apart from that, all the other issues that were put on the table, where do they feel we should be flexible enough to, which ones don't they want us to put on the table, which one do they want us to take off? And I think largely the issues, that he doesn't have a problem with the issues, but probably the issue that is causing a bit of concern to them, and I understand it, is the issue of being sworn in, of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka being sworn in on 30th. But that is the view that probably he has. That's the view that many people have. That's the view that Jubilee has. But I'm not saying they share the view because they share the same political interest. No. That is, each one of us can have a position and a view. We have our view that for this country to move on, Raila Odinga needs to be sworn in on 30th of January. And I think I've said as much. Yes.
Okay. One more question from me. In the 23 days before Raila Odinga is sworn in, you've insisted that he will be sworn in on 30th. In the event your colleagues from the Jubilee camp agree to engage you in dialogue, will that ceremony be halted? Will you put all things, will you stop all the preparations and everything to engage your counterpart?
I want to answer you by saying it depends on what the both sides would agree to discuss. Because, again, this is not the first time that NASA has been asked to slow down, or rather to stop the swearing-in ceremony, that there is a possibility of discussion. Many times, I think now about twice, that has come up. I want to also tell you that NASA has been very magnanimous, so to speak. Remember, even before the August 8th election, when we were removing the Isaac Hassan team, we were prevailed upon to stop some of our activities to wait for discussion, which discussion we accepted and took part in. Again, what was agreed on in those discussions have been trashed by Jubilee through the amendments that they brought just after the August 8th election. Now, it depends really entirely on the willingness and the signs that will come out clearly that Jubilee is interested in talks. We don't want cosmetic appearance that there is likely to be some talks and there are no talks, meaningful talks. But most importantly is that you need to understand the NASA supporters. NASA supporters, and I'm one of them, believe that Raila Odinga should be sworn in sooner rather than later, together with Kalonzo Musyoka as his deputy. And so many of us, even 30th of January is too far. Actually, many of us feel that we should have not pushed forward the swearing in that was supposed to take place last year. And many of us are getting on the 12th we were supposed to be sworn in. That should have not been pushed forward. And we feel seriously, many of our supporters are feeling disappointed. Many of our supporters are impatient. I'm one of the people who are very impatient. This country needs to have a way forward. And the arrogance of Jubilee is not helping matters. I think Jubilee needs to realize that they cannot run this country on their own. This country needs all of us. We have to run it either together or we perish together. This is a do or die for us as a country. There is nobody who is in this country by invitation. We are all here because we were meant to be here. It is the will of God who brought us to this country. And we should not be treated, or some Kenyans should not be treated like we were invited to be in this country. No one has the right to treat us that way. And that is one thing that I think many of us are saying, and we will keep on repeating it. Whether some people feel a bit jittery, it doesn't matter. We must be treated fairly in this country. Thank you.
So what next? After he's sworn in, what next?
You know, once...
where will your operations, where will you be operating from?
Those are...
Like a headquarters, a place?
That to me, those are details. You know, the people will have to decide how they are governed. Who said that the person who governs this country must stay in the State House? A specific house on the hill. It's just a tradition. It's just a perception. Who said that the person who governs this country must work from a Harambee House? It's just a building. The building can be moved elsewhere. If Kenyans refuse to go to a Harambee House to be served, the Harambee House will just be a shell. So Kenyans will choose where they want to go to be served, and we will communicate where the offices will be. Yeah. What is important is for us to swear in the people's president. Where he is going to operate from, we will be told. What is going to happen next, you will be told. But what I'm saying is it is for the people to decide who is to rule them, when and how. And the people cannot force people of Kenya to start moving to be served in some offices if they don't want to go to those offices. Remember, there are some
Well, that's a press briefing by the leader of the minority, John Badi, from his office, sharing with members of the press his thoughts on the planned swearing in of NAS leader Raila Odinga, his meeting that concluded a couple of minutes ago with His Excellency Ambassador Robert Godek of the United States, and also weighing in briefly on the situation of the cabinet. A partial cabinet has been named. He also shared his thoughts on the same as well in that briefing. Let's now cross over to Mombasa County, talk to Asha Bikidusa once again, where she informs us that taxi service Uber drivers are on strike, and she can then tell us what are their grievances and what are their demands, and how has that affected transport business in that part of the country. Asha, what can you tell us?
Well, Wahiga, right now I'm a few meters from the SGR terminus here in Miritini, and as you can see behind me are actually it's Coast Cabs Digital Association, which includes Uber, Taxify, Mondo, and all up-hail taxi. And actually they are protesting, and right now they are meeting with the security team here in Miritini. They are protesting about what they are terming as harassment from the police officers. They are saying that they cannot pick or drop passengers here in the SGR terminus, while other cabs and all other transport services, all other buses are allowed to pick and drop passengers here in the SGR terminus. Well, I'll be talking to one of the drivers who will be telling me what really is their grievances. What is your name, and maybe if you tell us into details, what are your grievances as TAP Health officer?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Our grievances are we given fair treatment at the SGR, because one thing, we are not treated fairly. Like, we are not allowed to drop or to pick, and even if you go there and pick, the officers, they go and drop a client from your car, and this we have found out that they are cahooting. There are some other taxis operation inside there which are NTSA non-compliant. All of our cars are NTSA compliant, but there are others who are cahooting with this police officer inside there to harass us. So our demand are we need fair treatment there. We have all the legal documents that we are supposed to operate there, but they have really given it a blind eye. They don't want to listen to us. They don't want to see it. Even if we present them to them, they usually buy time and maybe trying to bring issues here and there, just making sure that we are not really operating there. So,
are you clear maybe to pick and drop passengers here at the SGR terminus?
Yeah, at once we used, but now they never allow us to do so.
What's the reason? What are they saying is the reason for not allowing you?
Okay, the reason they are giving is that they are just as Uber or the online taxis, that we are not supposed to just that. Maybe we have the letter of which they have refused to recognize. They don't want us to pick that, but that's the influence from the other taxi operators outside who are not online. So it is like there are some cartels inside there.
Thank you very much. I'm joined by a driver from Taxify who will be telling what is your name and what are their grievances.
Yeah, so my name is James Makanga. I'm one of the leaders of the Coast Digital Cabs Association. And today we had to gather all our members to come here and ask the reason why we are receiving this kind of treatment here, because we were requested to comply. We sought for a letter of compliance from the people in charge of the SGR terminus. We complied. We presented the letter to them. They told them we have been given temporarily some space to operate. Now we are wondering why only us, the people of the up-hailed taxis, are being stopped from picking or dropping. So that is why we have gathered here today. We want to know why the OCS of this terminus is behaving in that manner.
And I'm seeing you're having a meeting behind. What are the issues that you've been told by the OCS?
Well, the meeting that is happening behind us is involving one of the youth leaders of Mombasa County, who has decided to join us and come and assist us to speak to the authorities here that are causing trouble. And we are hoping from the meeting we will have a better solution and a better working relationship within the people of the SGR and the taxi and the up-hailed taxi drivers.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, I'm joined by the union chairman who will tell me more about this issue.
Hi, my name is Rogers Javan. I'm representing the Coast Digital Cabs Association. We are a registered entity. We have a letter from the government, and we've been working with the county government too. All our cars are registered. We are compliant. We have all the relevant documents that we need to have. We had an issue with the airports. We sorted it out there. We were working good. But now the big issue that we are having, the reason why we are here is because of the harassment we are having on the SGR. Just to add on what my colleagues have said, we don't really fight with the old guys who used to do the taxi guys. Ours is a rider comes, he requests, he gets into a car, we pick him, we drop him where we want him to go. It's not like we go to riders and tell them come to our cars. But of late, the OCS has really been harsh on us. He's been taking out stuff from our cars. He takes out your insurance. He sometimes keeps you here waiting for the whole day just to punish you. Reason being that we don't want to compromise our integrity because they want us to give money so that we can be operating.
Any recent case that you've reported, and what kind of harassment was it?
Number one of our drivers here was kept here the whole day just because he didn't want to give something. He was kept here from morning to 8 and then he left. We've had meetings with them. We've tried to tell them how we work, but nowadays they've been having meetings with the other guys. They don't even question, they don't even call us, they don't call our colleagues to come and go air out whatever we are having. So that's why we decided to do this, so that maybe they can realize what we are having, and maybe they can send their colleagues so that we can have a talk with them.
Thank you very much.
And just to...
As you've heard, Wahiga, those are the grievances of these taxi drivers here at the SGR terminus, and maybe later we'll be joined by the security team to update maybe what has been the outcome of the meeting between these drivers and the security officials here at the SGR terminus. Back to you, Wahiga.
All right, Ashabiki Dusa giving us that update from Mombasa County and just letting us know what the grievances are of those taxi drivers who work for various up-hailing companies, if I can use such a term to describe them as well. Are we ready to go over to Meru County, where Josiah Mugo is on standby? He makes his debut as a correspondent from Meru County, his first time on Citizen Extra, I believe. Josiah, karibu, Happy New Year. What can you tell us from Meru County? All right, Josiah, if you can hear me, I have already welcomed you to the program. Happy New Year once again. What can you tell us from Meru County? I believe you want to comment a little bit on President Uhuru Kenyatta's partial cabinet, the views of Meru residents. Go ahead now. All right, we shall give him another few seconds. If we don't get him, we'll have to carry on with the discussion in studio. Josiah, can you now hear me? Josiah, we are waiting to hear your or receive your updates. We know that you're reporting from Meru County, just letting us know the views of residents there. Well, unfortunately, his debut will have to be delayed for now. Josiah Mugo will be talking to us a bit later on, giving us views from Meru County. In studio with me, we'll be talking after the break. Teresa Omondi, Executive Director, FIDA, will be talking about some interesting demands that FIDA gave to the President in late 2017 about the composition of his cabinet. We'll get more insights on that and what their feelings were when on Friday the President released a partial cabinet list. We'll be getting all that and much more. You're watching Citizen Extra. We will be right back. In addition, we'll be talking about Kenya Power and a class action suit that is being filed by former LSK chairperson Apollo Mboya. He is seeking to enjoin Kenyans in that suit where they are complaining that Kenya Power has been giving out inflated power bills over the last couple of months. So we'll be talking about the cabinet, matters of electricity, and so much more on the other side of this break. You're watching Citizen Extra. We'll be right back.